Who watches The Watchmen? Well, apparently we do. Welcome, everyone. We are almost cancelled, and we are going to talk about Watchmen Season 1, Episode 4. It's called If You Don't Like My Story, Write Your Own. So, full spoilers for the episode, as always. And I can't believe it took me till Episode 4 to use that joke. I don't know why it didn't take me this long to think about it, but...
Yeah, clever.
Thank you. I don't like your tone, but thank you. So, yes, episode 4, and we obviously were very focused last time on Laurie, and it was all her stuff from her perspective. This immediately felt back to kind of episode 1 and 2 because we were immediately back to Angela and following her side of things. In fact, a lot of the earliest stuff in the episode was actually overlapping because she's like cleaning the bakery, and she's like scrubbing all evidence of well-being there, cutting up the wheelchair, and then we hear, then she goes to the science place, and then she hears the car, and it kind of like, okay, so this is how it syncs back up with the stuff with Laurie last episode. But that's not what we open with. We open with a random couple who are very happily married, seemingly, and it's almost like overly cheesy, where at one point the wife drops some eggs and like one rolls off the porch, and the guy's like, "Oh, you ditzy wife of mine," and she's like, "I know." And it's just, it's like a sitcom almost. And they're doing a jigsaw puzzle together. It's all very sweet. Lady Trieu shows up. Lady Trieu is a new character, and she arrives late in the evening because the couple are in bed. And she comes in, she's like, "Hey, I want your land, I want your house," because she's building the big structure that we saw briefly before, which is down the street, and she wants this land because it's kind of close by. She wants to expand or have more privacy, or whatever it may be, but she wants this land. And she explains to them that, she knows who they are, she knows that they tried to have a baby a long time ago, and they went to a clinic, and it couldn't happen, and she explains that, "Hey, I'm going to give you a son." And they're like, "You're going to give us a son? This is strange and weird." And they're very emotional here. This woman's kind of invaded their lives and making all sorts of obscene obscene gestures and requests. And she's like, "No, I'm not going to give you a son. I already did it 35 minutes ago." Well, that's not what she says. That's what made me think of. Because if you recall in Watchmen, towards the end of the story, when Veight's explaining his plan about what he's going to do to New York, they say, "You're going to kill this many people," and he's like, "No, actually, I did it 35 minutes ago." And it's kind of this like, "Wait, what?"
Ooh.
And it ends that issue with like, "Hey, all these dead bodies." Like, well, actually, I guess the start of the last issue is all the dead bodies. But point being is that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of that. Is like, no, I've already done it. I've already got. He's here. Your son's outside. He's waiting to come in. And of course, they end up signing. Visual little bit of stuff here I wanted to mention is that when she's like making them sign a thing, it's over the top of the jigsaw puzzle, which is missing like several pieces still. It's hard not to take this as like, hey, this woman's the missing piece of the puzzle. As a visual cue.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I got that.
I'm sure you'll show how smart you are later on. I'm sure when we get to Lube Man, you're going to hit us with some hot take that's going to blow us all away. What does Lube Man represent? Well, if Laurie's using that big...
I'm going to save my opinion until when we get there.
Okay.
But hold on to your butts.
Let's just say Laurie could be using Lube Man if she's using that contraption.
Did you notice the name of the farmers?
Oh, I didn't actually. What was the name of the farmers?
Clark. Like instead of Kent Farms, it's like Clark Farms.
I didn't notice that. That's a neat little touch.
Yeah, a little bit Superman parallels there. Because couldn't they not conceive also? Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah,
I don't really know Superman as well as you do.
No, yeah, it's true. They couldn't have their own kid. That's partly why when Clark arrives, when Kal-El arrives in baby form.
Right.
So this kid's going to be Superman's what you're saying. This kid's going to grow up and be...
I think there's some obvious parallels, right? Like just a young couple on a farm.
I mean, not even that. The scene ends with a meteor landing outside, which is not surprising to Lady Trieu. Lady Trieu's like, that's mine.
Really? I don't know if she wasn't surprised. I mean, her reaction was, "That's mine because I just bought this place."
True, I don't know, but the way she says that's mine, it's as if because we're talking about their kid, like their new baby, and then she says that's mine, it almost made it feel like that was also a baby that was arriving, which again goes into the Superman comparisons.
Oh yeah, maybe.
That's how I took it.
Maybe there's a lot of weird babies in this episode. So
we'll get to the babies.
The different babies.
I've got some theories about the show as a whole based on all the baby talk and things in this episode. So
maybe that parallels to why there's so many eggs in this show too. There's a lot of eggs. Like the show opened with eggs, and that could just be the bakery or whatever. These farmers were selling eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I've been noticing a lot of eggs.
Well, this is part of birth. I mean, obviously not for humans, but like it's definitely makes you think of the birth cycle.
I mean, ladies have eggs. Not the same
sure,
way.
But yeah, but we can't crack them open and fry them.
Not to my knowledge.
Has anyone tried it though?
I don't need to know. Please don't answer in the comments.
Has anyone tried it? Oh dear. So that's a big opening scene where Lady Trieu's got a daughter as well, who we meet here briefly as well. We get more of her later.
We've met her before though. She was in I think the first or second episode.
It was the second episode. Yeah, it was the news stand.
Right.
She came for all the newspapers.
Which was also very reminiscent of the comics.
Yes.
Did you think maybe the meteor was Veidt?
Yeah, kind of, but I've got more theories on this as well, right? So actually, let's talk about Veidt. Let's talk about Veidt just now, right? Because that's kind of separate from everything anyway.
His story's very contained, at least for now. So.
Yeah. So I actually said something silly back in the episode 2 review, which you weren't here for. That was a week you were absent, and
well, no wonder you said something dumb,
right? And he had a birthday cake again, and I took it as this weird, like he's doing the same routine every day, and he keeps getting a birthday cake every day. But this episode confirmed to me that that's not what's happening. It's actually no. There's literally been a year passing between each episode for him. His story is not happening in the same sort of timeline as the rest of the show.
Right.
It's happening.
Yeah, I'm starting to think maybe this is a little bit older than the rest of the show.
It's set before the rest of the show. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking if he does escape his prison, that he may appear like the end of that will coincide with either the middle or the start of the show or something.
Yeah, I mean the storylines have to intersect somehow, right?
Oh, for sure. So the stuff that happens with
they just seem so bizarre, like they don't even, I mean, I want to say they don't seem like they're in the same world, but that's probably true.
There's some connections now, though. There's some connections, and we have things at least thematically to tie them together, and they could plot-wise also tie them together. We see Veidt. He's in a lake, and he's fishing for something. He's got like a fish cage up, and it's babies, and he like checks a baby.
Yeah, like a lobster cage.
Yeah.
Babies.
And it's got babies in it, and he checks like a baby's like, nah, this one's shit, and he throws it back in the water as it's crying, and then he throws another one back in the water. And although interesting, I don't know if it was in this scene or in the next scene, but there is a line from him that kind of implies that he's not the one who actually created them. That he's harvesting them,
says that.
But he's not.
I'm your master, but not your creator, or something.
Yeah. He's not actually. It sounds like he's annoyed. Like he almost thinks whoever like did this, whether it was Manhattan or someone else, or Lady Trieu,
right,
who seems to be able to.
He says it out of frustration because, like, if I were to do it, then I would have done a better job, almost.
Lady Trieu also apparently just made a baby and gave it to this couple, and I also suspect that her daughter is not actually her daughter; that it's her clone. So, right, stay with me. So.
Yeah, could be.
He gets these babies out of the water. He then takes them to some place in the castle, and he's got, I'll call it a rudimentary microwave. He puts the two babies in the microwave. He has a bit of cake.
that theme park ride where it spins you around real fast.
Sure. But he puts them in the microwave. He sits down. He has a bit of cake. Puts some music on, and then. He turns around, it's like a minute later, and they're spinning around still, but now they're fully grown adults, and like they're both nude, and then he brings them out. He's like, yeah, she can't talk yet, but you'll be able to understand me. And he's like kind of like training them throughout the day. He's giving them some clothes and so on and so on. I'm not gonna lie. So I laughed at the babies getting thrown back in the water because I'm a dark individual, but I also laughed. And this is also pretty dark, admittedly, but it's not as... I think most people would find the babies darker as a subject. But see when he like comes into the castle with them, and there's just like dozens of dead versions of these two, like, Crookshanks and Phillips, just all around the room. And he's like had a bit of a rough night. I'm like, how angry did you get? Like, just murdering people left and right. And just what sort of...
I suspect that he needs the bodies because he's sort of brought that up in previous episodes.
I think he
does. He has
some
kind of use for them.
Well, no, I think he does, but I still think he lost his temper and he went on a bit of a killing spree.
Yeah, they look like they were brutally murdered.
Yeah, it looks like he went around the room just as Jason Voorhees.
Like stabbed in the heart.
Yeah, this was not your typical just scientific. Okay, I need a body, so I'm going to kill one kind of thing. This was like massacre, but what I was thinking is like, do these two new clones feel fear? Like, are they looking at this room filled of like dead versions of themselves and going, I'm not... I'm a little bit worried about what he's going to do to me now. And then he makes them help him put the bodies on a giant catapult and fires them over the limit of wherever this area is. He talks about how it's been 4 years since he came here.
We see them disappear, but they disappear in a way where it's like they cross some kind of barrier. Not like they disappear into the beyond, just like, bloop, gone.
Yes. And the transition from this scene to the next very much implies that he's on the moon. Because the transition from this, he's looking through his telescope, transitions to a shot of the moon before it goes down to Angela's house for the next scene. So I'm fairly confident he's on the moon, and I'm fairly confident he's in a bubble. Kind of like when like Manhattan was on Mars in the comic. He made like a bubble for himself kind of thing. There was like a dome.
Do you think Manhattan's involved? Because I was thinking that in the last episode, but this is implying very much that it's this other woman. Because he kind of says he's only been there 4 years.
Yeah.
Did I catch that?
I think it could be her. I mean, maybe the moon thing's a red herring, like the transition with the moon. But I do think it is kind of a similar thing to Manhattan's dome, even if it is created by her.
She is Vietnamese. I wonder if...
Hold on a sec. She's got some sort of dome that does Manhattan, and you respond with, she is Vietnamese.
Well, I'm having a thought.
Okay. What do Vietnamese people know about making domes?
Read the comic, and there's that one scene in the comic where Manhattan's in Vietnam with a comedian, and the comedian shoots a Vietnamese woman who's pregnant. And the comedian said, you didn't try to stop me. You could have, and you didn't. I wonder if maybe she's like somehow linked to that in a way.
Well,
to where Manhattan, like if she uses the blue booth to call Manhattan on Mars, maybe he is working with her, like doing something to help her out. Maybe there's still a little bit of like regret.
I never necessarily thought of the idea that she's specifically related to that person that he shot. Later on...
Well, I mean, it's just a thought that I had like right now, so it's a bit incomplete, but like there is some connection to Manhattan and Vietnam.
Oh no,
and that is a moment where he maybe could have some regret.
Well, there's more of a connection than that, though. I mean, like the scene later on where the daughter, wakes up and she's having a nightmare, and she talks about being in Vietnam and running and screaming, and there's like firing
because of Manhattan.
Yeah, because of Manhattan and the other heroes that I say heroes with quotation marks that came to Vietnam, and she says that her feet are still sore, and I think that clearly says to me the motivation for Lady Trieu, because I don't think she's working with Manhattan. If anything, I think she wants to kill Manhattan.
She has technology beyond what we have. Maybe she's gotten something from Manhattan.
I don't know. I think she wants to kill him. I think it's the opposite. I think she wants to end him. Because of what happened in Vietnam. I don't know. Like, that was what my main jump to. I mean, I could be wrong.
That also kind of goes towards your theory of her being a clone instead of a daughter. And that's why she has like these dream flashbacks.
Well, I don't think that's just because she's a clone. That's because of the pills. The pills that Will had. Okay, right. I'm never going to remember what we skipped if I keep doing this. The pills that Will had, right? He said they help him remember, and then in this episode, a big plot point is that that Angela has the pills and she goes to Looking Glass to like try and find out what they are. Then later on, after this scene with the daughter, where she's having these memories, and it sounds like she's remembering what happened in Vietnam, even though she's clearly 12 or whatever age she is. Yeah, and then, of course, the big reveal is that Will's there, and we'll get to the other stuff that sort of teased that he was going to be there earlier, because that was really good. But, they have this conversation, and she says, why don't you just tell Angela who you are and where she comes from and all this stuff? And he's like, nah, that's not going to be enough. She has to experience it for herself. And she sort of criticizes that a little bit and says, oh, is that why you're doing it with your own daughter? So I think these pills have something to do with remembering not only like your own memories, but I think specifically your family tree. And I think the reason why they're using them on the clones is because it's giving the clones the memories of the person they came from, so that they'll be fully fledged copies of them when the time comes. So this is maybe how Will is actually still like this spry for 105 or whatever he is, because we see him stand up in this scene. The wheelchair was a ruse. He's up and walking. He's fine. So does that explain? Is he a clone of himself?
Sure. Yeah.
And
he did the DNA test, so we know he is who he says he is, right?
Yeah. No, he is who he says he is.
Unless he's a clone. Okay. It's true. We don't know very much about Angela's father or her parents in general. We know there's some kind of accident, but that's all we got out of this, I guess.
Yes. Oh, it's interesting to use that word because we specifically hear there was an accident with her husband, Cal, in Vietnam.
Yeah. We
don't know what that is. They just allude to it briefly. We also know her parents did die when she was young, but we don't know under what circumstances.
We know it's either super secret or super private.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, there's a lot of mystery stuff going on, and I think all this stuff with the babies and the pills, it was making me think about what the overall plan is here and what the goal is, because this big structure they're building, we hear it referred to as a clock tower, and she says, nah, it's not just a clock tower. And then later on, when Laurie and Angela arrive there, they say, oh, what is this thing? What does it do? The daughter just says, it tells time. And I thought that it tells time, tying into my theory about the pills, like the idea that it tells things from the past. It tells time, because I feel like I think that
maybe
line,
you would be able to have the mind of Manhattan.
The mind of what do you mean? Oh, you mean this the way that you
because he sees time differently.
Okay, sure. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah. So, but I do definitely think that her saying it tells time when we already heard it's not just a clock tower clearly says to me there's going to be a double meaning there. There's going to be a double meaning where it literally communicates at least stuff from the past. Probably not the future. But there's so much talk.
I don't know.
There's so much
Lady Time has a lot of money. Maybe she got her money from knowing the future.
Did you just call Lady Time?
What's her name?
Lady Trieu.
Lady Trieu. Look, it's her first episode. Okay.
I've got a bit on her here. So Lady Trieu is actually named after a figure, like a figure from Vietnam's past. So I'm going to read you the Wikipedia entry here, just the top of it. Alright, so Lady Trieu was a female warrior in the 3rd century Vietnam who managed to, for a time, to resist the Chinese state of Eastern Wu during its occupation of Vietnam. She is also called the Trieu Thi Trinh, although her actual given name is unknown. She is quoted as saying, "I'd like to ride storms, kill sharks in the open sea, dive out the aggressors, reconquer the country, undo the ties of selfdom, and never bend my back to be the concubine of whatever man." She's also been called the Vietnamese Joan of Arc. So
I see.
I can not read that and not think that she is very much, and not just because she has a statue of him in her like garden, but like she very much feels that this show's Vite. right? I know we have Veidt still, right, in a different kind of role, but
She does have a statue of him.
yeah, but she does feel like this show is like sort of contemporary version of Veidt, and that she seems to have some big grand plan, whatever that may be. Maybe the whole idea with this tower is that it's telling time thing. Maybe the whole idea, because so much of this show has been about this massacre, from 100 years ago in Tulsa. So much about family trees and history and knowing your ancestors, and the idea that
legacy. She brought up legacy with the couple.
Exactly, yeah. And then some people like
having an heir so that your legacy isn't lost forever.
And then Judd, like his secrets and all that stuff coming up and knowing all these things. Like, I wonder if the whole point of this is that, let's say this tower is literally going to tell time, and that it will tell people sort of like how their ancestors felt, or give them their memories or something like that. The point being to experience the pain of like all these tragedies. This is almost like her version of the giant squid. It's like, I'm going to make everyone actually feel the pain of what everyone's went through, to, I don't know, bring everyone together. Maybe that's her plan. I don't know. I'm trying to think of it in the context of fitting into a Watchmen type mold, and I can't help but feel like everything that's been going on with the talk of ancestors and family trees and all these tragedies in the past and all these different things. Like, there's a few other. Obviously,
why else would she and wheelchair guy be working together?
Exactly. Although, interestingly, it doesn't sound like it's just a super friendly relationship. Like, he, like she sort of doubts his commitment at one point, and then he stands up and says, "No, I'm in. Like, I'm all in," kind of thing. And
right.
He's like, in 3 days' time, she'll know what I've done, and she'll hate me for it, kind of thing. So again, teasing some mysteries, doing some of that Damon Lindelof mystery box stuff.
Oh yeah, nothing's getting clear.
As the thing though, I feel like as the show's went on though, I've been there's been more theories to kind of like take from all this stuff, and more mysteries to kind of sort of tack on to other mysteries and kind of come in. But it is interesting though that this is episode 4 of 9, and we're still introducing new characters. Lady Trieu is this big new character who's added so much to the show's conversation, because all of a sudden we go, okay,
sure,
we have this.
But I mean, we've seen teases of her. Like, we've seen the last episode, we saw the tower. I don't think we mentioned it in the review. I think we forgot. But like, we saw the tower, and we're like, what is that?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, she's been hinted at, but like, just the idea that we spent all last episode interested in Laurie. This episode we interested in Lady Trieu. Like, we're still interested in characters, like big players in the overall story in episode 4. So
right.
That's very interesting. I wonder if that'll continue. Is there someone else to like really dive into next episode? I'm not sure, but
well, I did watch the next time on, but I suspect you don't want me to say anything.
Not as of yet. We could do it at the end and warn people,
okay,
so they can leave if they want. But
it answers your question.
I'm going to take that as a yes then. Because how could it be a no? How could it possibly?
Well, yeah, the trailer is implying that yes.
Yes, there's a character of some sort that we'll be introduced to heavily. Okay. So we do have that tangible connection, though, of dealing with clones, assuming I'm right about Trieu's daughter, and that's, in Veight's story, because Veidt has clones, Veidt has babies growing, and then we also have the connection of the literal baby that she seemed to create. I mean, they imply they had their DNA, sure, but like how did it make this DNA?
She said the eggs were not viable, so how else are they going to make a baby?
And she says it's biologically yours, like it biologically comes from you two, which, cloning. She took their DNA, mixed it in a pot, and
which we didn't really mention, but this whole scene was pretty cruel, right?
Oh, the opening
in the beginning. Yeah, she's like, I want to buy your house. You have 3 minutes to decide. By the way, I don't want to buy it with money. I want to buy it with legacy. And then she says, I'm going to give you a baby. And to which they're like, no, thank you. Except she already made a baby and then made them hold it and then said, okay, so if you don't, then the baby goes somewhere else. But it is technically your baby. So Pretty cruel, I thought.
Oh, it is, yeah. It definitely has a cool. Also, worth mentioning, she also gives them $5 million, so it's not like they don't get nothing.
Sure, but they don't even have time to think.
Oh, sure.
And if there wasn't a baby there, it seems as though they were saying, "Get the hell out of my house.
It was a
want your
little.
business.
It
We
was
don't
a.
want your baby."
It was a little white rose from Mr. Robot. Actually, it was like she values her time so much that she's like, no, yeah. I know you don't watch it. I'm just for the people who do. They'll get my reference. So
You're having a conversation with me.
it's all for the audience. You're not allowed to reference things sometimes that I won't get.
Like what?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Come on, Miss Crookshanks. Every time it says Miss Crookshanks, I love it. I love it. The name's so silly, but it works. It works coming out of Jeremy Irons' mouth. It just does.
Because he has the greatest voice, maybe of all time.
Simon Says.
I know, right?
Yeah. Hey, it's the first time I ever saw Jeremy Irons, and it was Die with a Vengeance. All right. He'll always be.
Probably Lion King for me.
He'll always be Simon. Or
I think I only watched Die Hard with a Vengeance because it had Scar in it.
He'll always be Hans Gruber's bro to me. Always.
Spoiler.
That's an Act 1 spoiler. I'm not going to feel too bad about
I know, we already went through this.
that. Plus, it's like 24 years. My God, Die Hard with a Vengeance is 24 years old. Jeez.
I don't know.
I remember.
I don't keep track of music.
I remember renting it from the video store when it came out. Like when it came out in video, like renting it because I wanted to see it.
Peter, focus.
Yes.
Focus.
It's all relevant. We're talking about Jeremy Irons. Oh. I just thought of something.
Oh.
When she's showing off the statue of Trieu to Angela and that.
He's old.
Yeah, they ask about it to say why does he look so old, and she says, well, in Vietnamese culture we revere our old. What if Veidt himself is a clone?
Maybe, yeah.
And intentionally is meant to be old. What if the real Veidt actually died like a long time ago, but the clone has been made to be old? Because there is an element to him as well where he's realized, because he even says that, oh, when I first started here, it was a I thought it was a paradise, but now it's a prison. Over time I've become aware that this is nothing but a prison, a cage. So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably grasping at straws there.
Well, maybe if he's a clone, then we see that the clones that he creates are born without any knowledge.
Yeah, but the pills.
And they have to learn. Like, he has to tell them everything. But then...
The pills.
But this Veidt knows everything already.
The pills.
Oh, yeah.
The pills that make you remember things.
I don't know. I don't like it.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just spitballing ideas here. It was because of the way they had that dialogue. It was the specific, well, why is he old? Because we revere our old. So we if I'm going to make a Veidt, it'll be an old version of Veidt. It was very specific wording that she was using.
I thought that was just a cover up because they have Veidt.
We could probably sit here and talk about what theories, with this stuff all day. But I think the clear themes that we're working with here is the family trees, remembering what's happened to everyone in that family tree, and the creation of babies and clones, and a bit of both, or a mixture of the two. These are clear things that are happening here. And it also brings back into the idea of playing God, right? Because that's also a big thing about Watchmen, is the idea of Manhattan being God and just doing whatever he wants.
Right.
So
yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot of superheroes that have a God complex, but like Manhattan is the only one that really is God.
So
do you think the clones are him? Did we talk about that? I know I'm going back to theories.
No, we talked about how they might be based on like him before he became Manhattan and what's her face?
Did Manhattan talk about like exploring this whole being a god thing and maybe creating his own civilization or his own race of people?
Yeah, he said something like that at the end.
He would do it in his image. most likely like the god that Americans, for the most part, worship.
No, he said something like that at the end of the book. Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he'd go to different galaxies or something like that, or different, you know,
Oh yeah. Okay.
universes. Let's go into the other stuff though, because we could sit here and sort of aimlessly like fire through that stuff constantly. Yeah, so Angela cleans up her place and gets another phone call from the place, the heritage place, and goes there. She's kind of like makes a fake break-in report so she can break in herself and
Yeah.
go see her family tree, and finds out who her great grandparents are. Finds out who her, talks about Will being her grandparent. How the only photo of him was of a kid, and he was presumed dead during the massacre, but clearly he just got away. And she's like, okay, I know this now. I hope he stays away from me, kind of thing. Like, I'm done.
Well, we don't know who Angela's father is in the family tree either. His
No.
picture is just one of those question marks over a human shadow.
Which is probably very intentional. But there's clearly a mystery here to who her parents are, and there's clearly, like, we've got who her grandfather is, but it feels like it's murkier than that. But we hear it sounds like he betrayed the family in some way at the end. That's what he's talking about. He's like, oh, when she finds out what I did, she'll hate me for it. Like, so there's clearly something here as to how the family's broken down.
And it seems like Angela had zero interest previously in figuring out who her family was. I mean, she's been pretty, like, surprised by all of this information, and going to the ancestry family tree thing to look it up. She seemed to be really into who her parents were also, because she doesn't really know. And her when she's like holding the letter that the take care of this boy one, and she's like gonna burn it, and then holds on to it and then kind of like accidentally burns it. It's just suggesting like she hasn't really given this much thought or cares very much about it, because she's kind of careless with her, legacy in her hands.
Yeah, it's also the idea that if she doesn't want to know, but all these other characters are all obsessed with it, and they all want her to know, and they want like everyone to know their legacy, kind of thing. I mean, it kind of makes the whole show be about being empathetic.
Not empathic. That's Deanna Troy.
Yes, empathetic. Yeah, empathetic. I was right. I don't know why I'm doing it myself. I blame Firefly. I blame you, Cat, because you're staring at me. And it's making me uneasy. So it kind of fits in the theme of the show that, again, she doesn't really want to know her legacy. So again, legacy is a big part of this show now. Like this episode's really blown that into perspective and kind of made it a big part of it. Not like that, but like even other scenes in the episode thematically tie into it. When Laurie and Angela kind of team up because she's got this lead and she wants to go and find out where maybe their car dropped from, because obviously they're kind of both aware of what's going on now. Once the car falls out of the sky, obviously Angela's not told her everything, and she's like making sure Laurie doesn't find out certain details. But Laurie's like, nope, this guy's 105 years old, and how do 100-year-old people get around? Wheelchairs. Like, she's got this attitude to her the whole time. And they go to, the clock tower, right? They go there, and we see, like, they've got, like, 6 or 8, they said, of these, like, flying vehicles that they seem to be using to build the top of the tower. Like, they're going up and, like, constructing parts of the tower. But it's like, hey, who can fly these things? Like, who had access the other night? Let's look at this and see who might have used this. And at least at this time, when they're talking to Lady Trieu, and Lady Trieu says something in Vietnamese to Angela, and it's basically says, hey, did you find his pills? Like, she immediately just drops the facade in Vietnamese. She says, did you find the pills? And, Angela says, oh, you can tell the old man to, if he's got something to ask me, he can do so himself, kind of thing. So,
yeah, this scene made me laugh, actually, because they're trying to play the Vietnamese off as, like, some ancient proverb that they always say to mourn death or whatever.
But this isn't the funniest scene in the episode, though, not by any means, because we have a Lube Man to talk about, because Angela, when she's disposing of the wheelchair parts, she throws it into, like, a garbage truck that's, going under a bridge, and she throws it over. She turns around, and there's someone watching her, is a man dressed in all silver. It's a silver spandex bodysuit. He's got goggles on. He's got his face painted silver or whatever. I remember I'd have to look at him again, a screenshot, to really like describe it perfectly. But he's all in silver.
He moves really quick, so yeah, you don't really get that good of a look at him. Really.
Yeah, he's kind of gimpy-esque.
Although
looking.
you could probably freeze frame it and
yeah,
see, but I didn't.
I did see people on the interwebs talking about how it looks a little bit like Laurie's partner, assistant, or I think his name's Petey. Similar
really?
build. Yeah, he's got a similar build to him apparently. Although I was thinking more if it's one of the clones from Veight's part, like, because again he's kind of a slim dude. Because it's a very slim guy, whoever it is. Maybe
we don't just think this is another vigilante, like the Batman guy we got.
I don't know, because this is just like, it's very specific because he's watching her, and we don't see any more of him. But we do get this total what the F moment when he runs away from Angela's chasing him, and he's like he sprays like liquid on him, and I thought he was going to set himself on fire. I genuinely thought he was about to set himself on fire.
Really?
Yeah, because I thought it was like spraying like alcohol or oil or whatever, and instead it was.
Well, that would have proved he was a clone.
It was yeah, true, but instead it was like baby oil or something like that, because he sprays this all over him, and then he dives and slides into the drain, which
the storm drain.
The storm drain, and this might be the most delightfully silly thing I've seen in the show, and it looked really slick.
I love Angela's reaction too, just like, what the F?
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
It's perfect. It's a perfect reaction. And notice how in the previously on they managed to get her thing from last week. They made a point of putting that in there. Yeah. That was good. So they end up teaming up for a little bit, her and Laurie. To no avail, of course. But there is, again, going back to legacy, we have Petey explaining Laurie's legacy, because Laurie seems to know a lot about Angela. Went and talked to her husband and so on and so on. And she's like, well, what about your legacy? And it's like, well, her parents were this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you were in she was in the Minutemen? What? Like on TV? He's like, no, that show is garbage. There's so many inaccuracies.
What a nerd.
Gave me a chuckle. But no, all this stuff was... again, tying it to the theme of the episode. I mean, Lube Man, maybe not as much, but I'm sure I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by who Lube Man is.
Me too. More Lube Man, please.
More Lube Man.
Hopefully we'll get an episode around him soon.
I want more Lube Man, and I also want to see what other everyday nooks and crannies can he slide through.
Yeah, he's like Jackie Chan.
Like, I'm saying, if you didn't see, if for some reason you're listening to these reviews and you just want to hear about what happened and you've not actually watched it yourself, no, he jumps and just slides feet first into a storm drain and just slides in one motion.
It's beautiful.
It's majestic, is what it is. It's majestic.
Majestic, exactly.
It's something else. So Angela goes home after everything and talks to her husband. And this is where we hear about the accident that he happened to have in Vietnam. We don't know what it is, but mention it's there. We know he doesn't like to lie. He brings it up too, because he had to lie to Laurie. Because obviously he couldn't say, oh, hey, yeah, we got this weird phone call and she gave me a gun and she had to go out and blah, blah, blah. So, so all that stuff is there. But I
like the way he talks about death to the kids, like even though they're super young.
Oh, that was a great scene.
Both had their parents murdered.
But
he's still just like, no, honey, there is no heaven.
Yes.
But it's okay, because we just go back to what it was like before we were born.
But that's the thing, you joke
and
about
they're
that.
okay with it because waffles.
But that's the thing, you joke about that scene, and it is played for funny, don't get me wrong, it is a funny scene, but again, the thematics tie in with the rest of the things we're doing in this episode. He's talking about there is nothing before you're born and nothing after you die, but we're dealing with plots where people are being cloned and people are coming back and people are living a long time. We're really, like, all the other...
We think, anyway.
All the other plots in the show, even if we don't understand them yet, they all seem to be challenging this very notion that it's this simple. That there's other ways around it. There's other things we can do with it. So, I actually think
it's just interesting to see an atheist family have the talk like I did when I was a young child.
Oh, sure.
I know that I am very intrigued and excited about what's next because I make a lot of connections to the graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm wondering if people who haven't read it, I wonder if they're still watching this show.
I can't imagine they can follow it. I feel like there's so many.
Because it's pretty weird.
I do want to point out another scene as well where Angela goes to Looking Glass to get him to look into the pills, but also keep a hold of the clan outfit that she got from Judd's place. And he's even got a great line here because she's like, "Did you know he was racist?" And he's like, "He's a white man living in Oklahoma." So
Yeah, and so is he. So like,
yeah.
I suppose he's kind of implying it too.
I mean, he says that before he sees the outfit, though. So I think he was just like.
Yeah, I don't think he was expecting a clan.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting that extent.
Police.
Yeah.
Right.
So again, it's something we have to dive into.
The chief of police, who, according to his wife, loved Angela.
Yeah, I mean, he even going back to legacy, he talks about how his grandfather was a lawman back in the day, and maybe this is a keepsake. Again, legacy. Like, well, I'm not saying that's true. I think there's more to it than just that. But again, it ties into the theme. Like, everything in this episode, I actually like it more as an episode the more I talk about it, because everything does actually kind of very nicely tie in. He also talks about the squid coming from another dimension, and how they're always...
Yeah, he's a prepper, huh?
Yeah. They're only here for 30 seconds until they die, and their entire 30 seconds is spent dying, presumably because the atmosphere is just, completely different.
Okay, so the Rorschach journals are out.
Mm-hmm.
So people but those weren't written before the Minutemen go to, no. Were they still called the Minutemen with Laurie?
I don't think so.
Yeah, they were the Watchmen.
Yeah.
Before the Watchmen went to Veidt, that's where it ended. Just where we know Veidt's involved somehow. So I guess people wouldn't know that the psychic squid was Veidt in this world, right? Because you would think that the Looking Glass would know. But he's like super concerned about the psychic squid, like the next big one that's going to come.
I have to go back and read the last chapter of the book again to remember exactly what Rorschach knew before he went in that, before he went on that mission, and what he only found out when he was there, because
nobody knew about the squid until after it happened.
Well, yeah, but the whole point of the journal, though, is it proved that everything was fake. It proved that this plan was a plan, and it ruined, because Veidt's whole plan was that this would bring everyone together, but the Rorschach journal stopped that because it said, no, hey, this has all been orchestrated. So yeah, you're right. I don't think I knew about the squid. I'd have to go back and read the book again to tell you exactly how much information he had at the time. So yeah, like, the world knows that Veidt's plan was bullshit, but I don't know.
Well, the people who believe the Rorschach journals, anyway.
Sure, yeah. Which we know is a controversial topic, but yeah, he seems to be completely under the impression that these squids are really coming from other dimensions and that there's something happening. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then where are they coming from? Where are these squid coming from still?
I don't know.
I want everyone at home to know how difficult this recording has been. Let's just say cats, mainly on Tara's end, although I had one incident on my end as well, have made this recording very difficult, and it'll be in like 5 or 6 pieces edited together. So hopefully it flows quite well. If it doesn't, I apologise. Blame the cats. But we've done our best. So, as always, let us know what you think of the episode in the comments. Like and subscribe. Ding the bell on YouTube. Make sure you get notifications. Rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts, because that helps us out a lot. It spreads us out to more people. More people find us. Tara, how can people support us financially?
Well, if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MalefusTV. We have a ton of bonus content on there for just $1. Plus, you get bonus episodes of other shows we do. Peter and I also host a science fiction movie podcast called The ACE, The Atomic Cinema Experiment, and you get bonus episodes of those for movies that are maybe you love but are a little unknown, like the Trancers saga. We started that. Or Time Cop, one of the greatest movies of all time.
I think people know Time Cop.
So check it out.
I also, Tara's selling it a little bit short. I think you missed out one part of that pitch there for the ACE, the Atomic Cinema Experiment.
What?
You forgot to mention it's the best podcast ever made. So, like, I feel like a really
Oh,
weird omission to me.
well, that goes without saying.
I mean, if we can say that fact with the utmost certainty, and we can, it feels weird not to put that in the advert.
Yeah. I'm surprised we didn't call it the best podcast ever made.
You can also enjoy the second best podcast ever made, Screams After Midnight. It's a horror movie podcast that I do with Tim. But go check out all this other stuff. Check out me and Connor have been reviewing Mr. Robot, and we also just started reviewing The Mandalorian. So these are all the big shows that we're doing right now, so feel free to go and check them out. So that is us. Thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?